Supercomputers that Seymour designed had a tremendous impact on our everyday lives. The safety design of cars, crash testing, exploration for petroleum, certainly the design of military aircraft, and then later the design of civilian aircraft were all areas in which supercomputers had a tremendous role.
The museum has Seymour's desk that he actually used to control data. What you see on the desk today is the Boolean algebra that Seymour generated to describe the computer. We also have a slide rule, which Seymour is very proficient at. And you also see the clock that was on the upper corner of the desk. And this was a mechanical clock that buzzed whenever it was running.
I really wasn't that interested in meeting him or anything. I mean, I wasn't that impressed. I didn't know any better. Yeah. But so I came for the interview, and it went all right, because he really, you know, he didn't want a secretary underfoot. He was just obliged to take someone and to work for him. But I remember him saying to me, would you call a meeting in the lunchroom? So I told everyone. And we went to the lunchroom at the time, and he stood up and spoke what he had to say, very minimal amount. And he'd just turn around and walk out. I mean, he was painfully shy, I would say that.
We're standing here in the interior of a Control Data 7600 computer. The reason it was built in this shape, the C shape, is to try to shorten the wires, because one of the limitations on how fast the computer could run was the length of the wires from one module to the next.
So this is a Cray 1. In fact, it's Serial 1, the very first machine that was built by Cray Research. It's beautiful, it's iconic, and it turned the entire numerical computing world upside down. And there's one in the Smithsonian. So how did that happen?
We also had advancements in wiring, and we were able to make wiring a lot smaller, and we're able to shrink the machine down.
Good thing that always comes to my mind about Chippewa Falls and Cray, particularly in the early days, are the people, mostly women, that put the Crays together. They wired them up. This is in the old days before microprocessors and all this microscopic technology, that we actually had to make machines by hand. And so the production process was about 6 months for a Cray 1. Like the one I'm sitting on. And he said, but it was really 3 months of assembly work and then 3 months of fixing the errors that had been made in the assembly work. And that was very hard, very difficult to do, to diagnose the errors and fix them. Well, these ladies got so good that they could make this machine in 3 months absolutely error-free. No errors at all. So as soon as the machine got plugged in, it worked.
My name is Sonia Gardner. I started at Cray November 1st, 1976. However, I worked at Cray from about 1974 in the wiring department. I was a temporary worker until '76.
I'm Yvonne Brunstad. Started working for Cray through tennis. One of my tennis partners was Seymour's wife, Jerry, and her business partner, Sandy McCausland. It was like a little cottage industry in that we all worked at home.
My name is Shirley Gormley, and I started at Cray November 1st of 1976. And we started in the wiring area, and then I went on into the cable area shortly after that and made all the cables that powered the systems.
And my name is Jim Mondelaar. I started with Seymour in 1974, January, and I was hired as the early checkout engineers on the Cray 1.
On the first chassis down at the little building down there, and they brought that thing in and they laid it down, and here was I know, 5 million of these little blue and white wires hanging all down. They said, now, you've got this crochet hook, and you've got this book that tells you you pull from point A to point B, you put a solder sleeve on it, and you solder it together. We're looking going, oh my Lord, how are we ever going to do this? But as I can remember, my girlfriend and I, we started after we got used to what we were doing. When we got up to doing, I forget if we got up to like 500 little wires in a day that we pulled out. And of course, then you had to make sure you didn't make a mistake, because if you did, you had to take them all apart and find the right ones. So after a while, everybody could really go pretty fast. You could get your speed up. You did the little short wires first, and then they gradually got longer. And then pretty soon, the mat would be, I don't know, 6, 8 inches deep. And then you would have to take your fingers and dig down in this wire mat to be able, and look with a flashlight and be able to count the little wires on these bars so that you could get your crochet hook and pull out the right one. So after a while, it got to be quite a challenge, but as we can all tell, we all did pretty good.
Well, there were probably two, if you want to call it that, teams at the time. One was maybe even three. One were the mechanical engineers headed by Dean Rausch. The other was a software group headed by Bob Allen. And then the third would be the electrical engineers that I was a part of, and Harry Runkle and others were some of the engineers that were involved in doing the electrical testing and design of the machine.